The road to the trial. Preparing for justice, the road to the trial of José Antonio Ibarra was long and emotionally fraught for Laken's family. As the investigation into his crimes continued, the Riley family had to prepare themselves for the next phase of the process: the court hearings, the legal strategies, and the inevitable media attention that would surround the case. They were about to step into a public forum where their daughter and sister's tragic death would be the focal point, examined in detail and dissected by legal experts, reporters, and, at times, the public. The Riley family, who had already been forced to cope with the sudden loss of their loved one, now had to face the emotional weight of the criminal trial. For them, the trial wasn't just about finding justice for Laken, it was about preserving her memory and ensuring that her death was not in vain. They would have to endure watching the defendant face his day in court, a man who had taken everything from them in the months leading up to the trial. The prosecution and defense teams prepared their strategies, each side aiming to make their case in the most compelling way possible. The prosecution, led by an experienced prosecutor, was prepared to argue that José Ibarra had premeditated the crime, committing murder with intent, and that the nature of his actions warranted the harshest possible penalty. Meanwhile, Ibarra's defense team sought to focus on his mental health, arguing that his emotional instability and troubled past were mitigating factors that should influence his sentencing. The trial would unfold over several weeks, with each side presenting its arguments, examining witnesses, and piecing together the events leading up to Laken's murder. The central question of the trial would not just be whether José Ibarra was guilty of murder, but also the degree of responsibility he bore for his actions. The prosecution's case, cold-blooded murder prosecution team wasted no time in making it clear that they intended to pursue the maximum penalty for José Ibarra. Their case centered around the brutal, premeditated nature of the crime, arguing that Ibarra had planned and carried out the murder of Laken Riley in a manner that showed no remorse or consideration for the victim's life. They painted a picture of a man who had been driven by anger, frustration, and a need for control, resulting in a violent act of rage. The prosecution opened their case with a detailed timeline of the events leading up to the murder. They explained that on the day of the killing, Laken had gone for a jog in the Oconee Forest Park, something she had done countless times before. As she ran through the familiar trails, José Ibarra, who had been a regular in the park, happened to spot her. The prosecution claimed that Ibarra, seeing Laken alone, saw an opportunity to act on his deeply ingrained anger and aggression, attacking her in a secluded part of the park. Witness testimony and physical evidence pointed to a violent struggle between Laken and her assailant. The prosecution